We should have Beit
Gimel.
Gimel. If a Gentile lent money to a Jew on his chametz, then after Pesach deriving benefit from it is permitted. But if a Jew lent money to a Gentile on his chametz, then after Pesach deriving benefit from it is forbidden. If a food collapsed over chametz, it is regarded as removed, and Rabbi Gamliel says, provided a dog cannot search it out. One who eats truma of chametz on Pesach inadvertently must repay a kohen the principal plus a fifth. If he eats deliberately, he is free from payment and from liability for its value as fuel. These are the main species of grain with which a man fulfills his obligation of matzah on Pesach, with wheat, barley, spelt, rye, and oats, and we can discharge it with demai. Well, demai with first tithe, whose truma has been separated, and with second tithe, or consecrated produce that were redeemed. Kahana with challah and with truma, but not with untithed produce, not with first tithe, whose truma has not been separated, nor with second tithe, or consecrated produce that was not redeemed. Okay. Regarding the unleavened loaves of the Thanksgiving offering and the Nazarites' wafers, if he made them for himself, he cannot fulfill his obligation with them. But if he made them to sell in the market, he can fulfill his obligation with them.
Okay. So having dealt with the species that you can fulfill the mitzvah of matzah with, we now move on to maror. Okay. So here are the vegetables that you can use for maror. The chazeres, which is lettuce. The ulshin, which is chicory. With tamcha.
They call it endives here.
Endives. Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. Endives. Fine. I'm not sure if endives and chicory may be the same thing. I actually don't know what chicory is.
I don't either.
I know you make a coffee substitute from it.
Yes, that I know. Right. I think they did that in the army, years ago.
Yeah. Maror. Sorry. The ulshin v'tamcha, which the Rambam says is a kind of ulshin, the kind of chicory that grows in the garden. The char chavina is a kind of a spiky growth, which when it's young, when it's still soft, can be used as a vegetable.
It says it's a type of acacia plant.
Type of a
acacia plant. Is that the right word?
Really? Wow. Okay.
And also the other one before this was horseradish.
Maror. So maror is another one over here. Min kusbar, which is coriander, which is also bitter. Now, where is horseradish in this list over here?
It's after endives. It's lettuce, endives, then horseradish.
Tamcha. Right. Chazeret, yes, right. Tamcha is yes. Right, okay, so tamcha is horseradish. Okay. Yotzin bahin, bein lachin, bein yiveshin. You can be yotzei on them whether they're fresh or dried. Although, in parentheses, we must add that if it's dried, you can only be yotzei on the stalks, not on the leaves. Okay. Aval lo kavushin, not pickled, lo shlukin, not boiled, not stewed, lo mevushalin, and not boiled. Okay, it's got to be uncooked.
Preserved is the first thing.
Yeah, no preserving. It's got to be fresh or slightly dried, maybe. Okay. Mitztarfin le kazayas, and the different species join together to make a kazayas. Okay, you got to eat that kazayas, and the same, by the way, is true of the matzah, the different species of matzah. If you have half a kazayas of wheat matzah and half a kazayas of spelt matzah, that's then you've eaten a kazayas. That's fine. Okay. The yotzin bekelach shelahin, and you also are yotzei on the stalks. The kelach shelahin let's just see, as we mentioned. Yeah, that's as we mentioned above. Uber demai, and once again we go through the list of things that are maybe not lechatchila, that you wouldn't choose to eat min mahadrin, but if you have demai maaser, if you have demai maror, you can eat that. for the mitzvah. Maaseh rishon shenitla trumaso, maaseh sheni she'eker sheniftu. I'm not going to go into those explanations again. We've been through those several times. Okay. Mishna Zayin, ein shorin isam mursan letarnagolin. Okay, now being careful not to have things become chametz on you during Pesach. So apparently, typically, what you would do is you'd take bran and soak it in water to feed to the chickens. But if you do that, that's going to turn the bran into chametz, and you can't feed your chickens chametz on Pesach. Aval choltin. What you can do, however, is scald them. Because by taking this dry bran and straight away putting it into boiling water, you prevent it from becoming chametz because it's immediately cooked. So the cooking process prevents it from becoming chametz. Okay. Which of course is the reason why your matzah is okay. Once your matzah has been baked, we don't, those of us who don't hold by gebrocht, or who do eat gebracht, it's because it's been cooked, it cannot become chametz again. Those who choshesh for gebrachts would take this a little more seriously. There would be more choshesh. I think it's a hiddur. I don't think there's actually a serious chashash. Anyway, Isha lo tishre es hamursan shetolich biyada lemerchatz. Okay. So again, we get a window into what people used to do in those days. A woman used to take mursan, take bran, and rub it on her skin before she goes to the merchatz. It's supposedly some kind of cosmetic, but again, she can't soak it before she puts it on, because again, it's going to become chametz. Aval shafahi b'sara yavesh. What she can do is rub it dry onto her skin, as long as her skin is only the only moisture on her skin is from her own sweat. But if her skin is wet from other things, then of course that also doesn't work. Lo yil'os adam chitin v'yaneach al makaso b'pesach mipnei she'en machmitzos. And similarly, okay, a person shouldn't chew chitin, and apparently that's now another refuah, is to chew wheat and put it on a wound. Because again, his saliva will make it become chametz.
What's the story with the Naga Brooks over there? Because if we say if the halakha is that if you scald it, it can't become chametz again because it's already cooked and fried. So why?
That's once it's cooked, yes.
Why are they holding by that? If we know this is a halakha, is it just a kumrah that they're doing?
There's an open. You're asking about the gebracht.
Right.
I can't answer you directly. I don't know. If I don't hold words, I'm not going to be able to make a coherent argument for it. It does appear to be, as you say, a pretty explicit Mishna that once something is cooked, it cannot become chametz, and maybe they just hold that it's stam chumrah. Maybe there's another unnamed Tana who disagrees with this Mishnah.
It's not here, right?
That they're choshesh for.
Because I see many people, like, they're making something, baking something, whatever they're doing with the matzah, and they're soaking it in water or they're soaking it in milk, No,
I mean, look, the Litvaks are pretty dafka about making kneidlach for the soup, and Seder night. So, but you'd have to ask a chassid or somebody who holds by it what's their reasoning, because I'm not going to be able to give you a good reason.
All right. Flour. Also,
you can't put flour into the charosis mixture. See here, we've got Kahati gives us a recipe for charosis, which is a mixture of crushed fruit, mixed up with vinegar and water, which you're supposed to use as a dip for your meat. Okay, and the recipe often calls for flour as well, but obviously on Pesach you're not allowed to do that because it'll become chametz because of the water that's in the mix. And similarly, you're not allowed to put flour into mustard for the same reason. Okay, but in Nasan, and if somebody did accidentally put Pesach flour, we're talking Pesach flour, matzah flour, right? Flour that's been guarded, because our flour that we buy in the shops is already chametz. because it's just the preparation process, and it hasn't been guarded and whatever. You have to assume that the regular flour that you buy in the shops is already chametz, even though you haven't seen it touch water,
Right.
but it possibly has. So this here is talking about where somebody kept aside some flour for matzahs, and he was guarding it against becoming chametz, and then it went into the charoses or the chardal. So there says the Mishnah, yochal miyad, eat it quickly, because the dafka. The Gemara explains dafka. This is if he put the flour into the mustard, then he can eat it quickly because it's charif, and the flour doesn't become chametz in it quickly. But if he puts the kimach into the charoses, you must burn it immediately because the flour will become chametz fast. Rabbi Meir Oser, even he says it's asur even in the mustard, to eat it immediately, because according to Rabbi Meir, the flour will become chametz quickly, just like with the charoses. But the halacha is not like Rabbi Meir, although I can't imagine where this is going to come halacha l'maaseh. Ein mevashlin. What?
When they say they put it, you have to eat it fast when you put it into the horseradish, okay? Charosis. What do you call it?
Charosis is not horseradish.
I know. I didn't mean that, but I meant the horseradish. So, but you have that 18-minute window. Is that what they're giving you?
Well, that's the thing, is that 18-minute window is flour and water. When you've got other ingredients, there are other factors involved. They can make it faster. So what Chachamim say is that if there's something charif in there, it prevents it from becoming chametz. But there may be other things that, like in the charosis, that make it become chametz faster. So
that's usually how I eat the mora. I eat it pretty fast. I'm not a big horseradish.
Okay. Ein mevashlin is a Pesach. You're not allowed to cook the korban Pesach. Okay, the korban Pesach has to be roasted. Okay, so you can't cook it lo b'mashkin v'lo b'mei peros. You can't put it in any liquids or even in fruit juice. Aval sachin umat bilin oso bahen, but you can baste it. And so before the roasting, you can use liquids to baste it in order to give it some flavor. Okay, so it's not just water, but it's also other fluids that are a problem to cook it in. But with the basting, so with put oil or wine on it or something else to give it flavor at the time that it's busy roasting. And you're also allowed, once it's been cooked, and you're having it at the seder, you're allowed to dip it in other things in order to give it flavor. And we don't have to worry about that the taste of the roasting is going to be weakened. The Rambam, however, writes about sachin matbilin also bahen after. So he says that you can only do the dipping after it's already been cooked, whereas the other Mefarshim are saying that even while it's over the fire, you're allowed to paint it with a bit of oil so that it cooks better.
I never asked anyone this question, but I always wondered about it, and I never looked it up, which I should have. Why is it a coke? I mean, why does Hashem say we can only roast it? We can't do anything else with it. What's the reason for
What's the drasha of roasting? I don't have one handy. I'm sorry. I'm sure there is going to be a drasha in there about why it has to be roasted, but yeah, I don't have one offhand.
I've always wondered about that. Why?
Okay.
Right.
So returning to the subject of, I'm not sure why that one sentence was inserted about the cooking, but back to the subject of the of things that become chametz. So basically, the wastewater from the baker has to be poured out because it contains chametz, and that water itself is now got it's got bits of dough stuck inside. Has got bits of dough stuck in it, and therefore it has to be poured out and it has to be poured out not just like into a pool. It has to be poured onto a slope so that it runs down and gets absorbed into the ground, and that it shouldn't pool in one place, because then it's still going to possibly be a mechshol.
Did you say you wondered why this was at the end? This part of the Mishnah?
I was wondering why we made mention of the laws of how to cook the Pesach.
It says here, Tosafos wonders why this Mishnah is placed at the end of this chapter rather than the 7th, which deals with the roasting of the Pesach offering.
Yes.
The Ram Kalava and Rashash surmises that the phrase "the Pesach must be dipped" in them also permits the Pesach to be dipped in mustard and chorosis. Thus, after discussing the laws of these substances regarding the prohibition of chametz, the Mishnah tangentially mentioned their use for the Pesach offering.
Interesting, thank you. It's brought because it's in the context of mustard and choroses. Okay,
Right.
Cool. Thank you. That was an interesting insight. All right, Erevin Yud Daled.
A ledge which is in front of a window, one may put onto it and take from it on the Shabbos. A person may stand in a private domain and move objects in a public domain, or in a public domain and move objects in a private domain, provided he does not take them beyond 4 amot. A person may not stand in a private domain and urinate into a public domain, or in a public and urinate into a private. Similarly, he may not expectorate. Rabbi Yehuda says even when saliva has become detached in his mouth, he may not walk few cubits until he expectorate. You know what I mean. Until he spits.
Yeah.
A person may not stand in a private domain and drink in a public, or in a public and drink in a private domain, unless he brings his head and most of his body into the domain in which he drinks. Similarly, regarding a wine pit. A person may catch water from a gutter lower than 10 tefachim, but from a pipe he may drink in any manner. If a cistern is in a public domain,
That's it. We've done 3.
That was 3. All right.
Yeah.
Really?
I think it was.
Yes, it was. All right.
Okay. Okay. Shabbos Kaf Gimel Hay.
We were just doing a Mishnah Brewer in why they had spittoons in the shul, why people were allowed to spit in the shul, and why they really allowed to do that, So we just worked on that. We may await nightfall at the Sabbath boundary to attend to the affairs of a bride or to the affairs of a deceased, to bring a coffin and shrouds for him. If a Gentile brought flutes on Shabbos, the Jew may not bewail with them. Just
a second. Hold on. I think you might be on the wrong mission. Yeah, we're meant to be on hay.
Hay? All right, sorry. We may attend to all the necessities of the deceased. We may anoint and rinse him, provided we do not remove any of his limbs. We may pull the pillow from under him and lay him on the sand, in order that his body keep. We may bind up the jaw, not that it should close, but that it should not open any further. So too with a beam that broke, we may support it with a bench or with the side pieces of a bed, not that it should be raised, but that it should not sag any further. We may not close the eyes of the dead on Shabbos, nor may we do so on a weekday at the moment of death, for whoever closes the eyes of a dying person at the moment of death is a murderer. If darkness overtakes a person on the road, he may give his purse to a Gentile. If no Gentile is with him, he may place it on the donkey. When he reaches the outermost courtyard, he may remove those objects that may be handled on the Sabbath, and as for those that may not be handled on the Sabbath, he may untie the ropes and allow the sacks to fall of themselves. We may untie bundles of straw before an animal. We may scatter tender cedar boughs, but not triply bound bundles of straw. We may not shred neither fodder nor carobs or before an animal, whether it is lightweight or heavy, and Rabbi Yehuda permitting carobs for lightweight animal.
Okay. Master Shani.
Okay. We're going to finish this tomorrow. We're going to finish Shabbos tomorrow. Okay. Daled Gimel?
Yeah.
If the owner said for a seller and another said for a seller, the owner has precedence because it adds a fifth. If the owner says for a seller and another said for a seller and an isser, then that of a seller and an isser has precedence that since he added to the principle. If one redeems his own Ma'aser Sheni, he must add a fifth to it, whether it is his or was given to him as a present. Sorry. One may act cunningly regarding Ma'aser Sheni. How so? A man says to his son or daughter who are of age, or to his Hebrew manservant or maidservant, "Here is this money, and redeem it for yourself, this Ma'aser Sheni." But he may not say so to his son or daughter who are minors, or to his Canaanite manservant or maidservant, because their hand is as his hand. And if one was standing on the threshing floor but had not money at his disposal, he may say to his fellow, "This produce is given to you as a present," and then he says, "This is redeemed with the money that is in the house."
Yeah, these are ways of trickery of not having to pay the extra chomesh.
Okay. Hey, Yud base.
Vav your base, but whatever.
I'm sorry?
It's Vav,
Vav.
anyway.
What did I say? Hey?
You said hey, yeah.
The two hairs that are stated regarding the red cow regarding saras afflictions, and those stated elsewhere, must be long enough to bend their top to their root. These are the words of Reb Yishmael. Reb Eliezer says long enough to be caught by a fingernail, and Reb Akiva says long enough to be removed with scissors. A woman who finds a stain is impaired, and she must be concerned for siva. These are the words of Reb Meir, but the Kachamim say stains are not subject to concern for ziva. A woman who experiences a discharge during Ben Hashmoshes on the 11th day of her Siva period, either at the beginning of the Nida or at the end, or at the beginning of the Ziva period or at the end of the Ziva period, or on the 4th day for a male, or on the 8th day for a female, all these discharges occurred during Ben Hashmoshes. These women are confused. Rabbi Yeshua said, "Before you rectify the foolish ones, rectify the competent ones."
Okay. Next. Choros.
Yeah.
About the mumim in the Bechor.
Okay. Above base. An eyelid that is punctured, notched, or slit, and there is a cataract in its eyes, or a commingling, or a snail-shaped snail-like growth, or a berry-shaped growth. What is commingling? The white breaks through the ring and enters the black. But if the commingling is in the black and enters the white, it is not a blemish, for there are no blemishes in the white. White flecks or water that are permanent. What are permanent white flecks? Any that remained 80 days. But Kanina ben Antigonus says, we examine it 3 times within 80 days. What is permanent water? If it ate fresh and dry fodder from a rain-watered field, but if it ate fresh and dry fodder from an irrigated field, or if it ate dry fodder and afterwards a fresh fodder, it is not considered a blemish unless it eats the dry after the fresh. Its nose is punctured, notched, or slit, or its lip is punctured, notched, or slit, or its front teeth are notched or worn down, or its back teeth are uprooted. But Kanina ben Antigonus says, we do not examine behind the molars, nor the molars themselves.
Okay.
And we now have
Gittin.
Okay, Gimel Hay. One who was bringing a get with an Eretz Yisrael and became ill may send it with another. But if he had said to him, "Take from her such and such a thing for me," he may not send it with another, for he does not want to deposit his deposit to be in the hand of another. If one was bringing a get from overseas and became ill, the court appoints another and sends him, and he says before them, "It was written in my presence, signed in my presence, and signed in my presence." The latter agent need not say, "It was written in my presence and signed in my presence." Rather, he says, "I am an agent of the court."
Right.
One who lends money to a Kohen, a Levi, or a poor person, on the condition to separate from their portions in its stead, may separate in its stead on the assumption that they are alive, and he need not be concerned that the Kohen or Levi may have died, or that the poor man became wealthy. If they died, he must obtain permission from their heirs. If he lent them before the court, he need not obtain permission from the heirs. Okay.
All right.
All right. Quick question.
Yes.
A mil compared to a mile. How much is a mil? How if you walk
A
1
mil
mil?
is actually approximately a kilometer.
Kilometer. Okay. I thought
Yeah.
Something came up in the previous shear. So kilometer. Okay. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Tomorrow, If I can get here earlier, I will. I figured you'd probably be.
Okay, Mitzvah Hashem.
Try
Thank
my
you very
best.
much.
Okay. Thank you. Be well. Bye.
Bye.